So my friend Joel Morowitz, who used to have this pro audio company called Estatic Electric, Joe unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but he always had a knack of finding product lines that nobody knew about. And one year, I remember he found, I think it was three product lines, and it was at the AES show. And I don't know if he paid for the booths or he arranged everything, but they were all right next to each other. And Joel was sitting there coordinating it. And it was the one microphone company was Samar, Samar. And I think they're doing okay now. That was by a guy, he was in Utah and he would make these ribbon microphones. And the microphones were like jewelry, what he was the machine work. He did everything. This one guy, and they looked fantastic and they sounded fantastic. And back then, nobody really knew about them, but now if you look them up, they have their website. You can buy them from dealers, and they've expanded the product line. The other line was Electronaut, and that was Rob Roy Campbell, and he was making a tube mic pre 2-channel unit, and again, like jewelry, his equipment. And then he went on to make this compressor that's really fantastic. But he sells direct, but he also was of the school of he made everything from scratch by himself. So all the casings, everything he made. I mean, other than getting the tubes and the parts that he needed to assemble, but a really fantastic job. He's out of Chicago. I've known him. He's a really nice guy to deal with, but he's selling direct now, and he's doing very well. And then the third company was a company called Ronin Applied Science, and they had these microphones and mic pre's that look like jewelry. And I'll put pictures up of all these different things, but this company, there was two guys that ran it, and I think they were from New York. And it just, if you look at the quality of like the mic pre, it's something you've never seen before. And they were doing things that other people weren't doing. Now, if you look them up, it'll explain it in detail what they were doing. But they got a huge interest at the AES show. A lot of people came to the booth to see their microphones. They had this really massive microphone, I think it was called the Archangel. And then they came out with another microphone called the Dove. And I think there was a few other microphones they were coming out with. But it was always, I always wondered if they actually did come out with the microphones or they didn't come out with the microphones. Because you would see a few placed, and there were a few reviews, but it never seemed like it took off the way it should have. And they had a huge buzz, that company. But the funny thing about that company is Rob Roy is like a genius at schematics and building things and that. And he started talking to the main guy that was doing the microphones, and they start talking tech stuff. And Rob is very competent, and he could just tell something was up. And he wasn't, because I talked to him later on. He says, "Yeah, George, I looked at the schematics. It just doesn't make sense what they're saying it's doing and what it actually is doing." And that kind of sent up a red flag for me. But I reached out to the company to see if I could become a dealer for them. And I don't know if they didn't have enough parts, or they were waiting for things, or they had investors. But it never really took off the way it should have. And that always was curious to me. I did do a little research, and I saw a few of their microphones used on Reverb. So I guess they did make a few of them. But I did look up my old emails, and I had sent an email to Joel Morowitz, and it was in 2014. I said, "What do you know about this company? And would you do business with them? Just tell me yes or no." And he responded, he says, "It's a lot more complicated than a yes or no answer. Give me a call, George, and I'll explain it to you." And I remember I did call him, and I think he was going to be one of the investors, but he couldn't get a straight answer out of them. And he kind of hesitated. but maybe he invested money. I forgot all the details, and I can't talk to him now. But very interesting microphone. I'll put some pictures up. But it just seemed like the company just disappeared. Rob Roy's doing great, and Samar, they're doing great, but that other company, they just disappeared. I saw they have a Facebook page. I found their YouTube channel, and I'll put the videos at the end of me talking, and you guys can see. But they always seemed like when you went to their website, there was more about the style and the photography, like things were out of focus, and rather than the specs or how the microphone worked, it was more about their philosophy of doing construction. And I'll show you. There's one video, the designer who's just dancing around, and then there's another one where he's checking his clothes, and then he opens up his palms of his hands, and you see the capsule and I think it's a tube in the other hand. I don't know what they were going for, but there was a lot of curiosity and there was a lot of momentum behind them, but it just never took off. So there you go. There's my story. So there's some videos I'll run at the end of this, or you can go to their website. They have 34 subscribers. So, and the last time it was taken care of was 2011. So there's my curious story for the day.
Hi, I'm Chris Garinger, Senior Mastering Engineer at Sterling Sound, New York City. I started in live sound. I did that for a couple of years. Then I went to school to learn about engineering. I wanted to pursue it. I was in a band that kind of stunk, so I decided to get behind the board instead of be in front of it. Went to a one-year school, got out, started working at Green Street Recording. Really learned a lot about the studio, learned a lot about hours and work and becoming a studio slave. Decided to get out and go back to college. Did that for a couple months. Couldn't hack it. Wanted to be in the music business, so started looking for a job again. I found a mastering studio in New Jersey, True Tone Records. That's where I kind of decided that I wanted to do mastering and how it was really about shaping sound and just working with sound. Went from True Tone to Frankfurt Wayne, 3.5 years there, then to the Hit Factory, 11 years there, and now 14 years at Sterling Sound. Really just found that for me, production and mixing and all that stuff is super cool, but I'm really just into sound, and mastering is what it is for me. Sound to me, music to me, it's all vibration. And when music has dynamics and depth and drastic changes, and just when it hits you the right way, for me, that's what it's all about. It's about feeling and drawing emotion, and the combination of lyrics and the music and the vibration all hitting you, for me, is why I got into this. I just love being a part of it. I love being able to, develop the sound and manipulate it and try and make the music have more of an impact and more emotion by turning knobs and making the tone and making the vibration stronger. That's why I really enjoy what I do. Years ago, when I was young and listening to records, I found myself alone a lot of times listening to records and would have my own emotional moments with these records, or my own enjoyment with each record. And mastering, many times I'm alone here doing my own thing, so it's very easy for me to find myself in that place again, enjoying the music by myself and just focusing on the music. There are so many times I hear like a great song where I'm like, oh my God, I want everybody to hear this. You got to come in here and hear this. But it's just not the case, is that I'm alone with the record doing my own thing, working on it myself. And then when it comes out, I'm like, hey, I worked on that song, It's one of those things, you're alone a lot of times while you're working, and you kind of want people to enjoy the music. I want people to have some kind of emotional reaction to the dynamics of the song, something to the song. I mean, lyrically, I have nothing to do with that. And when you hear a great song, a hit song, you just want people to know about the song. I want to share the song with people. For me, gear is it's important, but it's really about this what happens with the gear, the way I can utilize it to make my job better and to get what I want out of the project, to get the vibration, to get the sound out of the project. If it looks cool, that's great. It doesn't really matter though. It's about the way it works for me, the way I can, extend myself into the music through the gear, the ease of turning the knobs and getting the sound that I want. There's a lot of gear out there that looks cool and sound, is all that retro and all that stuff. But for me, it's just, if it works, I hear it right away. If it doesn't, I know right away. As far as analog and digital, it's the same thing to me. It's the ease of using it and the getting the response and the end product that I want out of it. That's kind of funny because everybody here has different gear, and we've changed gear over the years. All of us constantly put in a new piece of gear or try something new. Yet I think everybody who masters a record has a unique sound that I don't know if it really changes over the span of time. It's just might be a different knife or fork in the process. Um, we all get the same output every time, no matter what the gear is. So gear is kind of a funny thing. It's really more about use and ease of use and getting getting to where you want to take the music quicker and more accurately than something new that might be. You hear a lot of stuff about equipment like, oh, this is really good, you got to try it. And I may try equipment and find it to be whatever. um, I just find that the gear is just, it's like another finger or something for me to get to where I want to bring the music. I've always felt that when I work on a project, starting out in live music and appreciating live music and seeing an artist, a band perform and feeling that sound, that vibration. When you go to a show, it's much louder than when you listen to records generally. Um, Feeling that is what I want to feel when I listen to a record. I love full frequency audio, no matter what type of music it is. Everything has bass, everything has top end, the vocals need to like be there and full and loud. I love just bringing everything to its fullest without crushing it, just bringing it to its fullest and making it hit you and making you feel it. It's hard to separate acoustics from my life. No matter where I go, it's hard for me to shut off sound in the perspective that I have. I just can't like walk into a place and be like, oh, whatever. I automatically find myself listening to a room or listening to the speakers or finding something that, it just draws me to it every time. When I listen to the radio, if I hear a song that I've worked on, I don't really listen to the song that I've worked on as much as the song before it or after it that I haven't worked on, to see where my sound fits on the radio or against other songs. And when I hear something that I really like, I want to find out who did it right away. Like, oh, that's really good. I respect what that person did. I think with the future of gear is what I'd like to see is, and I have seen it a couple times, is where people who make gear will come in and ask me questions and ask, what do I want to see? What would make this gear better? When we get stuff to test, a lot of times it's already done. So there's really just, do you like it or not? Or will you endorse it? I would like to see some young gear makers come in here and say, let me ask all you guys, what do you want? What kind of cue do you want? What kind of steps do you want on an EQ? What kind of, threshold do you want on a limiter? Where they could actually design it for a specific group of engineers, mastering or recording or mixing or live guys, and really work with it instead of just sitting behind a bench saying, this is a recreation of a Pultec. This is a recreation of a Fairchild. Don't be afraid to step out and make new gear. Times have changed. Plugins have changed the face of recording and mixing now. But analog gear is still sought after and still used by a lot of people. For someone like me, I hear it more than I do with digital gear or a plug-in. So, I'd like to see gear makers be more hands-on with the people they're selling it to than just coming up with a great idea or a fancy, cool-looking retro box. Like, come in and let's see what works for me or what works for Greg or Ted or Tom. I really consider myself lucky. I consider myself, you know, just really, really. I can't even put it into words. I'm happy that I stuck with my vision and my dream of being in the music business because it's what I love to do. I come to work every day and I like being here. I like being around the people that I work with. I like being around the artists that I work with. Now I'm fortunate enough to be around big artists and big projects, and I feel really lucky to be where I am today and proud of myself.
I create. To express oneself is to make the mind physically manifest. To ask questions and search for answers is an act of creativity, facilitating the upward surge of the self. I create because I have something to say and a self-anointed purpose. To think different and thus do the unexpected. To unravel the knot of imagination and provide a voice to the power of ideas. To create is to free oneself, and that which is created frees others. I create in order to possess the tools of progress and give them to others. And tradition for tradition's sake, I question. And so should you. That the past has fooled you and lied to you. It has solidified what was once fluid and created a blind devotion to its own shadow. The shadows of the average and the common have offered you a cage, and history has only provided a better cage. I will not bow my head to the powers that be. And your ambition, resolve, and imagination should know no bounds.
I'm Joel Hamilton, and we're at Studio G Brooklyn. I'm one of the owners here. There's two partners, me and Tony Mamoni. Opened up Studio G a long time ago. Actually, this coming year, it'll be the 21st year Studio G has existed, and only a couple years in this new location. But I guess, no, that's it. I need a microphone that's going to give me what's important about that performance and leave what's not important in the room. Meaning the way that it fits with the rest of the instruments is important, but also kind of gives me a way to hear exactly what's happening. When you got somebody singing that can fill up the words with actual emotions, something that lets that through is important. It's sort of that tiny little window that we all shoot for, where below it, there's a whole bunch of boring. Just above it is overcooked. And right there is where everything sort of needs to be for me. It's like when your heroes sing into a microphone or speak into a microphone, and there's something about their voice that you feel like you know them better. Something reaches down the wires and grabs you. And there's particular pieces of gear that allow that to happen. And then there's pieces of gear that remind you that you're listening to a recording. Pieces of gear that I gravitate towards have a design philosophy that's evident in the way that the thing works, the way that it's executed physically. Like when you get your picture taken by a camera phone versus getting your picture taken with a large format camera, it's like you sort of sit up a little straighter and you feel like, hey, all right, this is an event. This isn't just a snapshot at the birthday party. This is like, I'm here to be photographed. And that changes the way that you think about what's coming out of your mouth. It changes the way you think about your own art or your own opinion or your own, whatever it is that is being recorded in that moment. The design, the physical form factor of what's being put up in front of somebody affecting the outcome of a vocal take. I've seen it again and again with a classic thing being put up, a classic microphone being put up right next to something that looks like a pipe bomb, right next to something that they don't even know is a microphone, and you wind up seeing how people respond to that. And it changes the outcome. It changes the vocal performance. For me, the artistic fulfillment comes from feeling that I've gotten the right capture of the right sentiment, of the right performance, to the point where I forget that I'm using all that gear. I forget that I'm using devices at all, and it kind of just washes over you. Like when it stops engaging the academic brain and starts hitting the lizard brain. You can be blindsided by a song in the positive sense, where you're like, I know I'm mixing it. And even being the one driving, you can be surprised, or you can be pleasantly surprised by this, there's that certain something, man, that's hard to put into words, where you wind up with a particular set of timbres that equals more than what you felt like your basic tracks were. It can happen in the mix. It can happen during tracking with the right timbres. Something can just hit you right in the heart, whereas you were listening with your ears when you started that day, and by the end of the day it's making your heart beat differently. That's fulfilling. There'll be like a beautiful voice on a great track, and you wind up just sort of getting the chills, and at right in that moment you realize that you've made something that matters, because it just doesn't matter to me until that feeling happens. It just doesn't matter. I think it's important in music and in art in general to find the edges of what any given age group is willing to go for. It's weird that popular opinion becomes these sort of lines on the tennis court that surround a particular genre or surround a particular design philosophy. So you start just accepting, oh, that's what a microphone looks like, or that's what a mic pre looks like. So popular opinion puts these lines down, and then everybody kind of runs around inside of it and thinks that they're playing the game. And all of a sudden you see somebody run past the lines, and all the people who have run inside of the lines for a million years go, hey, that's outside the lines. And you realize that a whole new genre is born of that, stylistically, design-wise. In all ways, there's sort of a mutation at some point where somebody's willing to go outside the lines a little bit. In the design sense, it's a willfully going outside the lines and seeing what you get out of it. And I think that what we need more of is people willing to go outside the lines. We don't need yet another pair of beige cargo pants. So I'd like to see people pushing the limits stylistically more in an era that seems to rely more heavily on historical precedent than ever in history, ironically. Where did we turn around and start looking backwards? You know what I mean? Like I'm nostalgic for a time without nostalgia, even if it's recycling old ideas and coming up with something new by discarding them. Like having an understanding of the past clearly is important, but it's knowing which things we can get rid of and which things we go, oh, that was kind of a cool idea. Let's take that and push it in this new direction. You know what I mean? I don't need to see a 5-wheeled station wagon. You know what I mean? But what I would like to see is more development in important ways that don't rely on the current paradigm. There's things that are based on like advertising that we wind up with solutions to problems that don't actually exist in the studio, but they're being sold to 20-year-old engineers, that are like trying to make it, and they're wasting money on like a phantom powered pop screen, you know, that you can like project waveforms onto or something, you know, like just these dumb ideas that are like, you know, when you can't see the screen because the pop screen's in the way and you're trying to sync up to your whatever, you know, like dumb ideas. I just watch things like that bleed young engineers dry of what limited budget there already is. And out of compassion, I'll make a judgment and say, you know what? You really don't need that. There really is something to it as far as how infectious enthusiasm, when it's genuine, can be for a particular microphone, for a particular song, or for a particular way of doing things. That's where movements are born.